Hello everyone, this is Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. In today's video, I'm going to share a really fun and easy watercoloring technique which involves blowing the watercolors around. So let's get started. To start, I have an A2 panel here of watercolor paper. I'm just using Channin cold press watercolor paper, and I have these beautiful liquid watercolors by Taylor Expressions. The colors I'm using today are lemon meringue, candy corn, lollipop, jelly donut, blue corn, and cookie monster. I'm going to squeeze out a few drops into one of the wells of the water media mat. I'm starting with lollipop. I kind of have these in rainbow order here. And then I'm going to take a dropper and add some water to dilute these watercolors. Liquid watercolors are very concentrated colors, so you do want to dilute them with some water before you use them. So I'm going to repeat this process for all the liquid watercolors I've picked out. Now that my watercolors are ready to go, I'm going to use that same dauber that I used before and start with my lightest color here, my yellow, and squeeze them onto my panel. I'm also kind of moving the color a little bit in the direction that I want already, just to kind of get things going. I'm going to have a large section of yellow here because I'm going to overlap the yellow with the blue to kind of create green, so I want a little bit more yellow. So what I'm going to use to blow, there's two options. The first is this air blower. This is something that Jessica Frost-Ballas uses a lot with her alcohol inks to create some beautiful backgrounds. So I'm just squeezing the air blower here and kind of directing the bead of liquid watercolor out towards the edges, and as it moves out, the trail gets a little thinner, and it really has this beautiful look, like a splat of paint. Really pretty. After I've got it the way I want, I'm going to dry it with my heat gun. You could also air dry this, but you just want to make sure it's completely dried before you move on to your next color. So before I move on to my blue, I'm going to make sure I clean out my dropper real quick. This is important to do. If there's any residual liquid watercolors in there, it's going to kind of taint your next color. And then I'm going to squeeze some of this Cookie Monster blue out onto my panel. Again, I kind of moved it with the end of the dropper to kind of get the splats the direction I want them going. And now I'm using the second option for blowing your watercolors. This is, well, it's well, I always call it a booger sucker. It's something that you get when you have babies to kind of help clean out their noses. It works just as well as the air blower. So if you have this already at home, I suggest you use that. And again, I dried it before I moved on to the next color. So the next color is this really nice dark blue. It's called blue corn. It's a little thick here, so I am going to probably get a little bit of water and maybe thin it out. Oh, I did already. I added a little. So if you notice that your colors are a little thick, you can always take your little dropper again and then add a little bit of water directly into that puddle of water onto your panel. Now moving on to my purple. This is Jelly Donut, just to use a little bit of the purple here, not too much. I'm getting some really beautiful thin splatters. I just love the way this looks. I love how thin the lines get, the veins of watercolor. I think it's really pretty. Now I'm moving over to kind of my warm side of my rainbow. This is candy corn, a really pretty orange. Again, I'm kind of blowing it and moving it around here just to get that kind of splatter look. And I am cleaning my mat in between colors just to kind of keep things nice and neat and not so messy. These watercolors came off of my mat really nicely, so I was very happy about that. And I'm finishing up here with lollipop. Again, I kind of go back and forth between the air blower and the booger sucker. I liked both. It was just whatever I grabbed to the right. So either of these work beautifully. And now this is completely done. I'll set this aside to dry, and then we'll move on to our sentiment. I just love how the watercolors overlap each other and kind of create new colors. It's just a really pretty look. So now I'm going to move on to my sentiment. This is the Bold Sentiments stamp set. I love this stamp set. The sentiments are gorgeous and just perfect for these kind of backgrounds. And the first thing I'm going to do is stamp it in a gray ink. This is Waffle Flowers Like a Pro. I'm going to stamp this first to kind of create a little shadow. This is going to help this sentiment pop a little bit from this background. This background can be a little busy, especially with all those really thin, veiny strands of paint that can kind of make it hard to read the words. So this is going to help that a little bit. So I stamped it twice to make it kind of bold, and now I'm going to dry this. This is really important because our next step is going to be embossing. So you want to make sure that ink is completely dry. Now I'm going to take my sentiment and align it just askew, a little bit off of that gray. So it's a little bit of that gray is showing, and it'll create this little shadow. So I just lined it off a little askew to kind of create a shadow. I put down some anti-static powder and then inked up my sentiment with Versamark ink, which is an embossing ink. And then I will pour on some white embossing powder. And as you can see here, the button powder stuck perfectly to my sentiment, and I'm just going to heat set that, and that will complete my card front. And when I hold this up to the camera, hopefully you can see that slight shadow behind these letters that just does help make that sentiment stand out a little bit more. So now I'm going to take this front panel here and add some liquid glue and adhere it down to an A2 top folding card base made from 110-pound white cardstock. I like to use liquid glue. I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to hold this down just a little bit till the glue sets, and that will help remove some of the little bit of warping that I had. I'm now going to use these beautiful enamel dots. This is the Clean and Clear pack by Waffle Flower, and I'm going to use some of these white dots, just add a little bit of dimension and just an added little sparkle or embellishment to this card. And once I've got those arranged, this card is completely done. I have to admit, I just love the way these cards turned out. This was such a fun and easy technique, and I really like the very simple sentiment with the enamel dots, just really pretty. I suggest that when you have these liquid watercolors already out and ready in your wells, make a couple backgrounds at once. Here's a second background that I created with a little bit more paint in the center, so it's a bolder kind of look. But I love both. They're both beautiful. I hope you guys enjoyed today's cards and technique. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.